You're welcome. All right, we are live and you guys can get started.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Good evening, everybody. This is the community development meeting for Tuesday, May 19th at 6 o'clock. If I could do roll call with the committee members. Rob Tankersley.
He's here. Oh, you want us to, Mike Wilson?
Yeah.
Mike Wilson.
Yeah.
You
Dave
said
Cook.
roll. Mike Wilson, yeah.
Roll call, yeah. And anybody, and John Creech is here, and I believe Lynn is also. If there's any council members online, if you could say who's here.
Sue Knight.
Paul Schmidt.
Casey Lippert.
All righty. On this meeting, we're going to talk about the 2030 downtown loop streetscape. I want to thank everybody for being present for the meeting. I'll hand the meeting over to John and he can do all the talking. John?
Thank you, Rob. So we wanted to take a meeting tonight and run this conceptual plan through the Community Development Committee. I kind of touched on it last Tuesday night when I gave the annual report for our department. It was a project we were working on, updating an earlier 2010 plan for downtown Sharonville. So just a little bit of background, then I'll turn it over to Lynn and Mark. Actually, Sarah had applied for a grant from Hamilton County Community Development, and we were awarded a $25,000 grant to update our 2010 downtown plan. And one of the things that, so once we got that grant, we basically went out, we did RFPs and we interviewed consultants and we selected Kleinger's and Associates here in Cincinnati to do the master plan for us. Lynn Nishwitz is the project lead and she's assisted by Mark Nolt. You may remember Mark because he did some work for us with the Safe Routes to School travel plan. I think he attended the final meeting at City Council for that. So one thing about this conceptual master plan is it includes a lot of the stuff from the 2010 plan that was put in there. Things like curb bump outs, sidewalks, improvements, lighting. Some of those things were never done. You know, the plan was done back in 2010. So we took a lot of that stuff and revisited it and rolled it over into the new plan. And another thing we did is because Kleinger's is, you know, they do this stuff all over the state of Ohio, so they've got a lot of experience in streetscape projects and kind of best practices, new things that are going on. So they've looked at adding some traffic calming to that project, which Lynn will get into a little more detail in just a second. So they put the plan together. Again, it's a conceptual master plan, so it kind of shows a lot of different things that the city could add to the downtown if it so chose. Obviously, that depends on finance, budgeting, future councils, because it's, you know, it is a big project and it could be split up in phases as well. But it's got a lot of good things in there. I think you'll see that moving forward, you know, as we do projects downtown, we could implement different phases to that. I think that's the introduction. We did present the plan to the Planning Commission last Wednesday night. It was well received. There were a lot of positive feedback from Planning Commission members, the mayor, as well as Jim Lucas. But again, before this goes to City Council, we just wanted to run it through the Community Development Committee to take a look at it. And with that, I will turn it over to Lynn, and she will go through a lot of the good details of the plan.
Well, thank you, John, for having Mark and I with you this evening. Can you all see the screen that I'm sharing with the document?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. So again, thank you for having us this evening. I'm really happy to present to you the Downtown Loop Streetscape Master Plan. As John mentioned, I did want to emphasize that the streetscape plan is conceptual and it emphasizes creating an arrival experience as you enter the downtown loop. It provides for a road diet to promote traffic calming and provides for pedestrian-friendly streetscape amenities to encourage people and visitors to stop, park, and shop in the downtown Loop area. So I was going to quickly go through the document this evening, and then after I go through, there'll be time for any type of questions, and Mark Nolt is available as well. So with that, John did mention the project purpose, but to reiterate that many ideas illustrated in these conceptual plans were discussed in the approved 2010 Downtown Strategic Master Plan and have been enhanced by public input during the Sharonville 2030 comprehensive plan process, as well as our landscape architects and engineers at the Kleinger's Group. So with that, I'll get into the study area. You'll see the study area is within the red dashed area and focuses on the streetscape of Reading Road and Main Street, with the emphasis on the 3 blocks there in the middle of the graphic, the downtown Loop area between Cornell Road and East Sharon Road. So on page 1.02 is the existing condition summary. I'm not going to read through all of these tonight, but I will discuss them when we get into the existing condition plan sheets, and we'll get to these in a couple of pages. It'll just be easier to understand when we get to the plan views. So this page 1.03 is the existing traffic patterns. You'll see in the dark black lines throughout Reading Road and Main Street, the big fat black lines are existing curb cuts, and that limits the opportunity for on-street parking. The traffic flow is 3 lanes of traffic, of one-way traffic throughout the loop, does promote fast driving. You'll also see in the red dots with the red arrows, the arrows of the traffic flow. And these areas show where there's heavy traffic backups. This sheet shows existing parking located within the loop. Currently, there are a total of 273 existing parking spaces. The light blue spaces are on-street parking along Main Street. The orange is on-street parking with restricted hours along Reading Road, the east side of Reading Road. And the green parking is off-street parking spaces with a total of, again, 273 existing spaces. So now we're going to get into the existing conditions. And these plans with notes reiterate the summary report that was a few pages earlier. So it's just reiterating our existing condition summary and plan view. So a few things we noticed from our review of the existing loop is obviously the roadway is 3 lanes of one-way traffic, you can see there. The sidewalk pavement in orange there, those are pavers that are along the roadway in the orange, and they're uneven in the sidewalk and therefore present tripping hazard. The buff color, the tan color is concrete that's adjacent to it. And the existing concrete around the loop is cracked in areas, and the jointing pattern is not consistent throughout the loop. The curb ramps that are the to cross the crosswalks in the orange areas here, those curb ramps are not ADA compliant currently. There's also a lot of overhead power lines and poles to deal with along the streetscape. There's also very large trees near these overhead power lines that shouldn't be placed underneath those power lines. The trees are just too big to be placed there. And the trees are not in an organized spacing. Continuing on to the south side of the loop, regarding lighting, the lamp posts and the conduit needs replaced all throughout the loop area. I'm sure you know that there's interesting history markers located on the ground plane by the Depot Square. They're round and they're very interesting. They talk about the history of Sharonville. It's just they're not eye-catching. It'd be nice to repurpose those in another fashion so they're more eye-catching to the pedestrian. And the existing site furnishings that are located along the loop, the planters, the benches, and the trash receptacles are dated. So it'd be nice to create a brand for those to create more interest in the landscape. So now we come into the proposed street diet summary. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these. I'll get to it when we get to the plan view, but I did want to mention that proposing a street diet means instead of having 3 lanes of traffic, we'd reduce the road to 2 lanes of traffic. And that would allow for slowing the traffic down. It would allow for curb bump outs to create parking areas and allow for a shorter street for pedestrians to cross, and also could provide for wider sidewalks in areas and a potential for rain garden areas. So now we'll come into the proposed parking summary here. So as you know, on the existing parking, we have 273 existing parking spaces. This graphic here shows a potential to have 299 parking spaces, so an additional 26 parking spaces. So what we've done, if you look at Reading Road there, like I mentioned, we propose to have a 3 lanes to 2 lanes. And by doing that, we want to have the parking on the west side of Reading Road, the dark blue there on the west side of Reading Road. So we'd move the parking from the east side to the west side. And the reason we're proposing that is, if you recall on the existing parking page, there was a lot of curb or and driveways into the parking lots. So there's less curb cuts on the west side of the road. So we gain more parking spaces by flipping the parking to the west side of the road. We've also added parking. You can see the dark green behind the Blue Goose. That's in Block C, a potential to add some off-street parking there. So with that potential, we've added 26 new parking spaces to equal 299. And now we get into the proposed plans, the proposed amenities to the streetscape plan. So this page shows, we're at the confluence there of Reading Road and Lebanon Road. And this is from prior studies, but still think it makes sense to have a passive park in the center there in the triangle. Perhaps it's an area for art installation, plantings to catch your eye as you come into the downtown loop area. So now we're into the main area of the downtown loop here, the north area, the confluence there of Reading Road and Main Street. So like I said, we're showing a road diet, reducing the one-way traffic lanes from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. And as you can see, we're showing parking there on the west side of Reading Road. These bump outs aren't just to buffer the parking. They can also provide for opportunities to install rain gardens and provide for stormwater mitigation. The rain garden areas that I'm talking about and the bump outs, they're in the yellow-orange color that you see throughout the streetscape. If you look at the top right, you can see there's a bump out with a rain garden. And in there could also be a couple of benches, and maybe the pavement is got a Sharonville logo on it, a couple of planters and so forth. Now, if we go back to the left side of the drawing, you can see that in the red there, we're proposing to have a gateway arch. Perhaps it's over top of the loop at both ends to really welcome people into the downtown area. So you would go underneath the arch. We're also providing short street trees that would be appropriate near the overhead power lines. So those are the green trees there that you can see going down the street in an organized fashion. So they would be short to go underneath the power lines. We would also put them in a more organized fashion and also pay attention so that we're not blocking views to businesses. And street trees are really a great way to provide scale to pedestrians and the overall streetscape aesthetic. Let's see here. You can also see the tan and the dark gray color there along the sidewalk from the back of the curb to the buildings. We're proposing to provide new concrete for the streetscape area and eliminating pavers for ease of maintenance and to deter the possibility of differential settlement between the 2 different paving types that you have now. So this new concrete would extend the entire way of the streetscape, and it really brands the downtown area. You'll see for this concept, we're showing the curves, that's the dark gray, in the streetscape pavement to mimic the Sharonville logo and to make the streetscape branded to Sharonville to really create a unique destination. So again, this is concept, it can always change, but we wanted to propose something that would create a unique destination and brand Sharonville. So now if we go to sheet 2.05, the southern portion of the loop, we would propose to provide new curb ramps at the intersection areas to meet ADA compliance. We're also proposing to provide the piano key aesthetic crosswalk and for the crosswalk areas, and providing the piano key just creates a little bit better of an aesthetic for the loop instead of just painted lines for the crosswalk. We're also proposing to have planters and benches to have more of a modern flair and incorporate city branding, perhaps a bench. There could be a logo in the new city benches, or like I mentioned before, we could have logos in the pavement. We would also propose to update the lampposts and the conduit all throughout the loop and space the lighting so it's more regularly spaced along the streetscape. Now let's focus into Creek Road. Creek Road is over here to the left of the drawing. You can see that there's specialty pavement all along the streetscape there of Creek Road. Our thought was to, at either end of Creek Road, there could be removable bollards such that if we wanted to close down Creek Road to vehicular traffic, we could have festivals, which would be a nice idea. And why you see the pavement like that is, again, perhaps we could brand Creek Road so that it's more pedestrian friendly, and the pavement there just kind of reinforces that. You'll also see on Creek Road, we have, instead of having 3 lanes, we reduced the road from 3 lanes to 2 lanes and added a bike lane on the left-hand side. We're also showing 2 little pocket parks at both ends of Creek Road. And when I mention pocket parks, that could include benches and bike racks and potential areas for art installations. I mentioned before those medallions that are in the pavement down by Depot Square. It might be nice to, again, repurpose those into a vertical element so you could see it when you're walking by the pedestrian areas. So creating art in the landscape. The top right of the drawing, you'll see we've got the new roadway design at the intersection. That was the new road design from the FEMA grant to minimize the flooding at the southern end of the loop. So we're incorporating that. And then also I did want to mention, if you look down by Reading Road at the bottom right of the drawing, Reading Road and East Sharon Road, we've reduced the lanes from 4 lanes to 3 and reoriented the intersection lane lines. And by doing that, we've allowed for a longer queue for the turn lane from Reading Road onto East Sharon Road there. So that's mostly the proposed improvements that we're suggesting. This is a phasing plan, and by all means, this phasing plan could go in any order, but we just wanted to get something on the page that kind of showed ideas of how you could phase this depending on the amount of money that you're willing to spend and the priorities that you have. So one thought would be phase 1 could be the whole loop area. That would include Reading Road and Main Street, and would also incorporate all of the lighting from our talks with the city Public Works Department and John and Sarah, is that all of the lighting would need to be upgraded at one time because all of the conduit and the light poles need to be redone. And there's a lot throughout that loop area that's all on the same electrical wiring. Another phase could be the yellow down there, the Depot Square. The orange that's listed as phase 2 is Creek Road. Could be a phase because it's all, together. Phase 4 could be in the green there. That could be the new parking behind the Blue Goose. And then we have phase 3 there showing Walnut Street. And obviously those could go in any order as the city council and staff see fit for prioritization. And then the last couple pages just show some imagery of what we think the streetscape could look like. You can see the top middle picture there. That's showing the piano key crosswalk that I mentioned before. You can see the middle picture in the middle of the drawing that kind of shows colored concrete in a curvilinear pattern. That's the thought when we were showing the dark gray curved patterns to go with your Sharonville logo for the sidewalk areas. And then the bottom middle and the bottom right show you could have bump outs that incorporate rain gardens. It could also be paved areas with benches to widen the sidewalk or rain gardens to promote sustainability. And this page here shows how we might be able to brand some of the elements. You can see that we could put the City of Sharonville logo or the Loop logo on trash receptacles or benches or planters. We're also showing the far right there, the light pole that's in front of the administration building that we would propose to put throughout the Loop area to have a consistent theme. You can see the second picture there to the left. That's the medallions in the pavement that I said are really interesting. It'd be really nice to vertically mount those to have an art installation and something you'd also notice while you're walking through the streetscape. And these are some a plant palette we would suggest for the streetscape area. You can see the tree there. We're suggesting an ivory silk tree lilac. It's an urban hardy street tree that's short and would be able to be placed underneath the power lines that you have there. And the other shrubs and ornamental grasses and perennials are plantings that are urban tolerant that would work nice along the streetscape, whether it be in a rain garden area or not. So that's the end of the document. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a few
Okay.
questions. I don't know if, am I muted? No, I'm good. I have a few questions. And let's see, if we could start with, first of all, let me ask you about the short trees that you're proposing, Lynn, that go underneath those wires. Are we thinking that not putting any underground wires, the wires are going to remain there? And if so, would you consider removing any of the existing trees that are there now?
Oh, yes, I do. I'll go back to the existing conditions. I do suggest to remove the existing trees that are along the road now. They're very large and they're growing into the power line. So yes, I would suggest to remove the existing trees.
Okay. And then, but the wires, you're not suggesting that it goes to underground wires there?
That is correct. So we made some calls and we looked into that. It's just really too cost prohibitive to remove those wires and put them underground. It's just an astronomical number.
Gotcha. The parking that would be created behind the Blue
Blue-
Goose there,
Uh-huh.
would that be dedicated to any particular business, or is just parking for anyone that's in the downtown area?
I'll answer that, but John, you can interrupt me if you want. I would propose that would just be visitor parking for anyone along the streetscape area.
All right.
Yep, that's correct. I know Jim Lucas is there. That property has tax issues. It's held up in some sort of probate, and I think he's got someone looking into the city somehow acquiring that once it gets out of all that court stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, it'd be public, I think, is the intent.
I think the design's really nice. The one thing I had a question about was the overhead arches at each end.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn, do you have any idea what the cost of those arches are?
That's a good question. I think we put a figure in as an estimate. I think those are pretty expensive features, whether it's lighted and what the material is. I think we put a lump sum in of maybe $100,000 for each. So I think that's something that's definitely going to need to be investigated more to see what something like that would cost. So I don't have a great feel of what that would cost, but
I like the arches. As a matter of fact, the reason I ask is because at one time I had suggested that we put an arch on each end of the Northern Lights district there on Chester Road. One at Kemper and then one possibly at Lippelman, not necessarily, right before you get to the school, was my thinking, because that's primarily where the business is going to be. And I was told that they were too expensive for us to consider, but I like the arches. They definitely have a value of you're entering a new area, and adds excitement to it. So I like that part of it myself. So I'm not saying we shouldn't do it there. I'm thinking maybe we need to do it both places, but that's a different story right now. My other question about this design is I like the rain gardens and those little pocket parks. I like that. Very nice features for people that are walking around downtown. As a matter of fact, it kind of ties into something we talked about in our law committee meeting today as far as walking around that downtown area. The one thing that I would ask to maybe look at in addition is this. Since you're going to be putting in light poles on in that area, is it possible, what would it cost to make that possibly a gaslight area and add a little more excitement in the evening?
you mean have like overhead lighting across the street? Is that what you mean?
No, I mean where the poles are now, those it look like an electrical pole that you showed
Yeah.
there. And my suggestion is, could that be gas lit?
Oh, gaslit?
Like a glass light district, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's something that we could think about and talk to our electrical designers about when we get into the design of that for sure.
I think that would be a great feature. So, and if we're going to replace lighting, we'll put it in anyway. I think that could add a lot of excitement to what you already have planned.
I have a question. When we were talking about making it 2 lanes versus 3 lanes, will that create a backup all the way back to Reading Road near railroad tracks? I mean, it's already wall to wall with 3 lanes, like between 4 and 6 o'clock. Won't that push all those other cars back further and they're waiting longer?
I'll go ahead and let Mark answer that question for you.
We did take a look at that. One of the things that we noticed about the entire loop area is that the leftmost lane in each direction really is very lightly traveled. It's primarily only used for vehicles that are turning left onto the side streets within the loop. For the majority of the traffic that goes through there that's continuing from one end to the other, they are in what's currently the right 2 lanes, and they travel through the loop area. So from a capacity standpoint, we are really not losing anything in terms of capacity. In the backups that you mentioned, we did see those as well, certainly during our traffic counts that we did, and also the observations when we were out there. A lot of those backups seem to be generated from the intersection of Reading Road and Sharon Road. There's a lot of traffic that is at that location. A lot of it is continuing straight, but there's a lot that's turning right as well. And the existing right turn lane onto Sharon Road is very short. Because of that, there's a lot of times that the right turning traffic demand can't get into that existing right turn lane. And because of that, that traffic just continues to back up over time. and which ends up backing up all the way through. So what we found is, with this conceptual design, we're showing that at the Sharon Road intersection, that right turn lane is extended by quite a bit. It looks like it's about 3 times the length of what it currently is. So that allows a lot more people that are turning right to get into that right turn lane when they want to, or I should say earlier, before they get to Sharon Road. And from the analyses and traffic simulations that we did, that turn lane extension there really helps to clear up a lot of the backups that are happening. So I don't think that I don't think anybody can say that backups would never happen, but from what we're seeing in our analyses and simulations, it seems to be a scenario that does a really good job handling the traffic that's there, even with eliminating that left lane going through the majority of the loop.
Okay, I'm in that traffic every day, so I know, especially like if I go to the post office at 5 o'clock, there's no getting out. I mean, I've been
Right.
parking at Cliffs and walking to the post office, and then so I can at least get the light. But I just know how backed up that is between 4 to 6. It's just a steady stream. You can't. I mean, even when you're waiting to get in to the from the post office, because that's a pretty busy exit. I was just curious about how much.
It's certainly a good concern, something that was on our mind as well as we got into this, and but we really feel like that it's a good situation that really tends to help traffic and better provide for pedestrians that are in the area.
Okay. I have another question. The trees that we're planning on planting, are trees a good idea? Because after 10 years, they start to start bringing up the pavement. If you notice the trees, and you say they're miniature trees, well, these trees that are all supposed to be around Sharonville, these pear trees, they were supposed to be miniatures also, and they're huge. I mean, they're into the wires and everything. So I just question, maybe instead of trees, maybe some other decorative thing. If you walk down, all the trees are bringing up I know there's bricks, but wouldn't that bring up the cement too? I mean, they're getting bigger, but.
That's a concern, but again, that's why we're suggesting there's really only one or two trees that really work in this scenario. You mentioned the pear tree. Pear trees are not small, so they're large.
Well, when they planted them in Sharonville years and years ago, they were supposed to be small decorative trees, and now they're a pain in everybody's butt. We are trying to we're getting a group cutting on Malaire Drive, because everybody's tired of the berries and the birds and everything. So
yeah, those are a shade tree, and they grow pretty quickly. And depending on the variety, they have weak wood, but nonetheless, we would only suggest if we did want to do street trees that they would pretty much be that variety. Is about one of the only options to make sure that they keep short and they're not bringing up the pavement. But it's a valid concern. But at the other point, again, so these are short trees. They don't get taller than 15 feet. What's nice about them is, it does create a nice aesthetic along the streetscape, because, you do like to have a little bit of shade just for aesthetic reasons and to feel nice in the streetscape. So just something to consider. But of course, these are all concepts. So if we decide moving down the road that we don't want to have street trees, by all means, we could do something else, planters, something like that with ornamental grasses, or some things could also be an idea if we don't want to do street trees.
Oh, Lynn, what was the name of that tree? It was a lilac of sorts. You saw.
Yeah, let me go back to it. It's actually the only tree that Duke allows underneath any of their poles. That and oh, the name escapes me real quick, but the ivory silk tree lilac. If you guys are familiar in Fairfield, around their Village Green area, they have ivory silk tree lilacs in their median areas, but they're nice. They flower in June with the white
I was
flowers.
thinking, interestingly too, Lynn, when we planted those, Sue and I were probably here when they did it. Those were all bare rooted in, and they were just little
Yeah,
twigs, and they projected 1 out of 3 would make it. Well, they all made it, and they weren't supposed to bear fruit. They weren't supposed to reproduce, which we kind of struck out. But that was part of a tree planting program that Sharonville had. Gosh, 40 years ago, Sue, long time, 30.
It's been a long time, yeah.
Boy, they turned out to be somewhat, well, the first ones were the Calgary Bradford pears, which were very frail in the wind and soft wood. Then they went to replace them with aristocrat pears. And they're a little bit better, but really not a good tree. And they've become almost, they're supposed to not reproduce, as I said, they're all over everywhere. They're like honeysuckle plants. You know?
Yeah.
But no, I did see a few of those lilac trees. I don't know where I saw them, perhaps at Natorp's, and they did look very attractive because they don't get very high.
Mm-mm.
I don't think they would lift up the concrete. I don't think they're strong enough. So that would be kind of nice if that were to work.
And they're urban. Yeah, they're very urban tolerant. And what's nice too is they're about the first tree that leaves out in the springtime. So it's just interesting. But yeah, that's about the only tree that'll work in this scenario that we've seen.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that would be a good selection.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions, Paul, if you're done.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you have a photo anywhere? Cause I'm thinking along the lines of Paul too, of a mature ivory silk tree lilac, like in pavement somewhere. So that might help us calibrate. This is what it looks like 10, 20 years down the road.
I could probably get a picture for you. I don't know that I can think of them in pavement. I know City of Mason has some in their medians, but they're in grass.
Okay. If anything, I think that might help us. Once again, my concern is along Sue, same long lines, that even up the pavement, maybe if they don't get that big, that may not be an issue. So if you could find a photo, I think that would help. It'd help me. Next question is, in front of the Sharonville Fine Arts, it looked like you had a parking spot. And the question I have for you is that strictly parking? Could it be drop off only? And did anyone talk to the Sharonville Fine Arts? Once again, they might love a parking spot, or they may hate it and want a drop off spot.
Actually, Sarah, I think you talked to them. Do you want to answer the question?
Yeah, so I presented to the Small Business Association a couple months back and spoke with someone from the Fine Arts Center, and they had preferred to have a drop-off area, but like we've been saying, it is a conceptual plan, so it's just noting that we could have a parking spot. So if we wanted to maintain maximum parking spaces, it was capable, but they liked the idea of a drop-off spot over parking.
Well, good. Ultimately, they should have the call. It's in front of their business. Me just looking at it, that's why it popped up. I think I personally would think a drop-off would be preferred over parking. So I'm glad to hear that that's what they would like.
I think they also mentioned something about doing like a rain garden or something instead, as an option in front of their building instead of a parking spot.
Okay. All right. Next question I have is, okay, Sue got the one on and it was answered on the street backup. I agree with Mike on the arches. I like that. I would like to see them have, if we do go with that, to have the opportunity to have them lighted and lit the whole time. Maybe there's an option if once again on the lighting they could change colors during Christmas time. But I'd like to see them somehow lit all the time if we go down the road. The next question is, do you have an estimate of the phases, how long each phase might last for construction?
Oh, no, we haven't looked into that. No, I don't have that at this time.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then a comment for me. Overall, I do like the plan. I like a lot of stuff. I think especially the part there by PNC Bank and the streetscape, the decorative look on the street, and just everything. It just gives it a whole new flair. It really is a great looking concept, and obviously there's some details we can change and so on, but I do really like the concept.
One other question too, this is Paul again. I really do like the concept of the arches also. We had talked about that some time ago, and I don't remember what all the, I think kind of got dropped. We didn't follow up on it. In your observation, traveling through the loop many, many times, the left lane in both directions is usually pretty sparsely inhabited. It's the two right lanes that get the heavy duty, so to say. You know, you can see that pretty apparently, and see that pretty commonly. And I really do like the idea of the jazzing up the two triangles at the beginning of as you enter. You know, down by where First Financial used to be. That building is now vacant. I don't know what's going to go in there now, Lynn, because you know it's kind of designed for a bank, but I'm not sure with the bank foot traffic down so much. I'm not sure if anybody's going to put a branch in there.
I think there's supposed to be a bank going back in there.
Oh, is there? That'd be good.
I think.
I noticed there was a lease sign out front. But I don't know what that all entailed. But that is a good idea if we could jazz those two up a little bit. That would really be good. And you know, we do have one entrance gate, that daggone railroad tower on Cincinnati Dayton Road. Remember that one? That always gets your attention. So Mike, you are correct. An overhead does get attention.
Yeah, and I do jump in here. The comment about slowing down traffic over the years, I know I get hit up on it every year. One person will talk about putting it back to two-way, and their main purpose is to slow down traffic so they can see the businesses. So I like the idea of cutting down the lanes to slow it down some. So, and that would be once again feedback from the business owners, help them out some.
And just one last comment on that, Dave, to this Paul again. The one, I don't know, Sheriff, you were at the business meeting, maybe it wasn't, but a few of them mentioned if we do put trees there, and Lynn mentioned this in her presentation, they did not want them to obstruct the view of the business or the signage of the business, because that might be a whole nother thing to do, but that was the big complaint, or I should say suggestion, whatever you want to put there. And I do like the tree concept if we can keep them small. But they said, you know, not to the current ones did obstruct some of the signs and the visions of those businesses. So that was the one comment that came back then.
And I heard some that prefer that are happy the trees are gone too. So.
Oh yeah, they offered to cut them down.
Yeah.
But it is nice to have something there. I'm not sure what's best. And I do like to see, I think, you know, most of these cities that do have the tree lines, you know, if you go into Europe, you've got the Kalmar linden trees, Unterdane linden in Germany and such. And they really do have a nice effect, a nice green effect if they're coordinated. And Lynn, you made that point. That's very well. You know, some of those German cities in France, those boulevard streets are just beautiful.
I have one more question. On the one picture on Creek Road, the map, we have bike racks. And I think we need to get more businesses to Sharonville in the downtown area I can't see people bringing their kids downtown a lot of them have already eaten dinner, so they're not going to go to the Blue Goose or Already Coffee. If we could get a few businesses to put in if Deli Depot or put in an ice cream shop or something where people could walk on the beautiful streets of Sharonville, but there's nothing. You have Game On Fitness, you have Lunatic Fringe, but all those businesses you need an appointment for. I think we need to, this is beautiful and everything, but I think we need to try and stress on bringing some businesses to downtown that are family friendly. That's what I think too. It'll be beautiful, but where are people going to go?
Right. Thanks for that comment. So, and I think that's one of the goals of this is to improve the streetscape, get rid of a lot of those traffic hazards and missing trees, and to improve the climate improve the local climate there to attract the business. I think that's obviously one of the goals we're trying for here.
You know, one of the things that Mayor Lovett used to always say, I think it's correct, you really have to kind of, and this, I really like the plan because it gives a certain unity and continuity to that whole area, and you have to get that first. And then, as Virgil used to always say, retail breeds retail. And that's, you know, you have to have a nice location that makes retail want to locate there. And we really have to pretty up the area, so to say, and really make it attractive for someone willing to, because it's a certain, I think, kind of more, gosh, what it will be down the road. You know, the malls certainly won't be around much longer. There'll be unique boutiques, perhaps Pleasant Ridge, and some of the Pleasant Ridge is focusing on kind of like shops that aren't affected by the internet. So there's a whole new potential realm of retail type stores that are going to exist probably. And that, I think, I really like the plan in a sense that we have to do the groundwork. And thank you for allowing me the comments.
Thank you.
Comments and question here. I really like the aesthetics. On 1.03, I think the comments at the intersection of Creek and Main about no turn on red, and then at Cornell and Main about the sharp turn going north to east are very well pointed out. I think the left lanes being underutilized are well taken. I think that point is well made, but I'm very apprehensive about going from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. As far as pointing out the current parking structure, looking at 1.04, you've got all the on-street parking on the east side of Reading Road, and you're talking about shifting that to the west side of Reading Road with the street diet. If this goes through, my suggestion is not to do that until you have the parking spaces at the old Scheidler building, that the property's in probate court right now, because you're just shifting a lot of parking away from that side of the street. I'd rather see that side of the street get that parking back before you make the parking on the other side. Like I say, I'm very apprehensive about going from 3 lanes to 2. I think on 1.03 with the heavy traffic indicators in red, you're missing a big one on Main Street from Weiscarver all the way to Cornell Road. That road gets backed up every single day. And, you know, when you're talking about going from 3 to 2 lanes, not only are we looking at the downtown streets that are on these maps, but when you're talking about Sharon Road coming into downtown at these heavy traffic times, Sharon Road gets completely backed up, and going south on Reading Road into Evendale gets backed up as well. So, you know, I'm not a traffic expert, and you say that there's been some simulations and whatnot, but I guess I find it hard to understand or accept that extending that 3rd lane going south on Reading Road and making it the turn only lane onto Sharon. The way I interpreted what you said was that it will make traffic better. In other words, going from 3 lanes to 2 lanes on Main Street, and Reading Road is basically 2 lanes anyway, because there's almost always cars parked on that east side of the road. So that's neither here nor there. I'm not worried about going to 2 lanes there, because there's on-street parking that messes that up most of the time anyway. But the way I'm hearing you is that going from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, the rest of the loop, and extending that turn lane onto Sharon Road will not make traffic any worse and will likely make it better. Am I hearing that correct?
Yeah, here's what we're seeing. Basically, with the shifting the 2 lanes that carry a lot of the through traffic through to the left 2 lanes. You know, once we get down towards Sharon Road, it provides the ability to provide a much longer right turn lane. Once we get to the intersection itself, those lanes start shifting back to their original locations. And we end up, you know, at the intersection with nearly the same lane configuration as what's existing, in that I guess the main difference is right now there's the lane that you can left from southbound Reading Road, turn left onto, I guess, what becomes Main Street to go back north, which is a relatively low volume movement. So at the intersection at Sharon Road, you're still providing the same lane configuration essentially, but the main difference is you're providing a much longer right turn lane, because right now it's very short. And so providing that longer right turn lane really helps to accommodate the traffic demand that's there. You know, I hear your concerns, and those traffic flow arrows that Lynn was showing on that conceptual map, those are, I guess, are intended to be somewhat descriptive as far as some of the main traffic flows. But we did collect traffic turning movement count data at these intersections, at all these intersections within the loop area. And, you know, so we have the full traffic demand at all these locations, and our model does account for the demand at each of the intersections. So I guess that's the main thing, is the main difference there is providing a much longer right turn lane. And from what we're seeing, that when we do before and after simulations, the lane configuration that we have here really reduces a lot of the backups that we're seeing in the no build condition.
I totally hear what you're saying about the southbound Reading Road traffic. When, you know, you're talking about Block B and Block C, you're basically shifting east side on-street parking to west side on-street parking. Does this plan do anything at all about northbound Main Street traffic, which is
That's
also
a good point, Casey. Yeah.
significant? Like, that is huge. And that's like the big absence on 1.03 from the heavy traffic indicator. Main Street all the way from Weiss Carver to Cornell Road. They're trying to get up to 275 on 42. And I completely understand what you're saying about southbound Reading Road with that turn lane onto Sharon. Does this do anything about northbound Main Street traffic?
So if you look there at the corner there of Cornell Road and Main Street, we're talking about taking some of that land there perhaps and creating a right turn only lane.
Which
So
side?
that would encroach onto that corner lot there going north as you go towards the Sharonville Fire Department and Cornell Road.
Which side are you looking at?
The old
AJ
A&J Flower Shop.
A&J Flower, yeah.
Gotcha.
So sheet 2.04 to create a right turn lane and encroach onto that corner lot to do that.
And that way too, Casey, if that gets moved back, it won't be as tight for like school buses turning to Cornell.
You're talking about making that a dedicated right turn area.
Yes. You can see the right turn arrow from Main Street onto Cornell. So it's a dedicated right turn, added turn lane.
Okay.
We know, this is Paul again. I'm sorry to, Sarah, remember we were at the business when we had the Business Alliance meeting at the Medical Arts? I guess it was the last one we had. That was the one big issue that I heard most comments from, the 3 to 2 was problematic. And what Casey pointed out was really correct. The north, if you come down Weiss Carver and you try to get on Main Street anytime, cars are usually backed all the way up back to that intersection of Sharon and Reading Road. I mean, it's tough to get on there. And I've never figured out if it's light timing or what, but I think an idea is that if we could do the right lane by A&J, that would be, I'm sure, quite helpful. But Casey had the right point. That was the most, I don't know what you would say, the most talked about aspect. The others seem to go quite well, but the 3 to 2, and it would stay the same or get better, seemed to be questioned. Even one person even said, well, you don't have to tear everything up. You can go 3 to 2 and see how it works with these concrete blocks and, the barriers, and see if the theory works. Certainly southbound is going to be, I understand that. The northbound is what might be more of a problem.
So you're saying that, okay, if we make the one lane to turn onto Cornell, then you have 2 lanes. So you only have 1 lane where people are going to get in to go up 42?
You've
'Cause
got,
the other lane would be straight.
so if you look there, you've got 2 lanes that are going straight.
Right. But if you go a little further up, you have the fork. I mean, you have to,
At LaRose,
at La Rosa's, you're going to have one lane because this is going straight.
Yeah, this plan here by the La Rosas was looked at by another engineering firm several years ago. And we did not look at this area in particular detail, but they're showing, it looks like 1 lane there.
So all those people that are trying to get up 42 to get on the expressway, I turn left onto Cornell Road and I never have a problem. There's never that many people turning left onto Cornell. I mean, I can see making it bigger for the school buses, but I can't see a designated turn lane just for Cornell Road.
are you talking about turning right, Sue?
Yeah.
Going Main Street, turning
Like,
Cornell?
yeah, up here, you have this 1 lane that's I don't feel that's a real complicated, if we make those both have 2 lanes so they can merge over to try to get up to 42. I'm just saying, I go on Cornell. A lot of you guys are on Creek, but I never find it a problem getting over a line trying to get in onto Cornell Road. I mean, this is nice. This curve is nice for the school buses, because I know sitting at this light, they always have a problem, but I'm not sure having a designated just 1 turn lane to go on to Cornell Road.
Well, according to the drawing, you'll still have 2 lanes going north.
Right, but it's a short turn. I mean, these 2 lanes will have to merge into 1, correct? To get on 42 like it is now, are you going to have 2 lanes? I mean, is 42 going to be turned into a 2-lane road?
Well, you've only got one lane that turns onto 42 anyways from Reading.
Right, but at least you have 2 lanes of traffic. You have a little bit of bigger chance, like when you're trying to get over, whereas you're going to have to get over. Do you know what I mean? I just don't think it's necessary for a turn lane onto Cornell Road, since I turn onto Cornell Road. Yeah, I don't see this being a problem.
It's essentially the same condition that you have now in terms of the 2 through lanes going northbound at Cornell. Those 2 lanes would still continue north. It's just that we would have 1 additional lane that you could turn right from Main onto Cornell.
I mean, I understand what you're saying there, but I'm just saying you're going to push all these cars to go. I don't know. I just know going up 42 is a pain in the butt.
The only suggestion I would make in regard to the 3 down to 2 is going northbound on Main Street. You're only talking about gaining 7 parking spaces on the west side of Main Street, And, if we want to stick with the bump outs on Reading Road, but not doing it on Main Street. But I unlike Sue, I actually like the right turn lane onto Cornell Road. So. Those are my comments. That's it.
Thank you.
Well, and I will say these are concepts. So once we get into engineering drawings, we can, further delve into the engineering for all of this and revisit the ideas, of course.
Right. Thank you, Lynn. I did want to follow up on that. So any major change like that, adding a right turn lane or eliminating a right turn lane, there would have to be traffic engineering study, because right now, I mean, we're just looking at this concept plan. 4 years from now, when we're maybe looking at implementing something, there could be different land uses out there on the landscape, different traffic patterns, or any kind of change could come. So, but at least we've got it on the plan. And then as we go forward with either looking for council to fund something or funding from or whatever, we can use this document to maybe achieve a grant to do the study. So everything will be looked at, studied kind of in a comprehensive fashion before obviously we do anything. But at least on this document, we've got something that, we can all talk about and debate. And then when the time comes, we'd move forward on that.
And like someone already mentioned, if there is a desire to try some of these on a trial basis, just to confirm how it is going to work, that could happen too. So that's certainly an option for the city.
That's why they're called concepts.
Definitely.
Right.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Just one that raised a question from what John said. This is a project that would not start for at least 4 years. Is that right? Or did I hear that wrong?
No, I'm sorry. I was just throwing that 4 years out as just I just threw that date out there. It could start next year if things are going good, the economy's back on track, we get money, we get a grant. I mean, obviously it's up to city council to decide and appropriate money to do these things. But yeah, I mean, it could be 1 year or it could be longer.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
But yeah, we've got the roadmap here. The document will follow to implement the phases, the parts, the pieces, whatever we decide, to pursue.
Well, I think that the plan is one that it will definitely add to the aesthetics of the city and make it more warm and welcoming. And you definitely have the attention of the committee. That's for sure.
All right. And now's a good time too. I think we mentioned this. When we took a lot of that public comment, opening up the comprehensive plan update, the walkability, downtown, those were two of the highest ranking issues of all the people that gave us comments. Everybody wants to come, everybody wants a downtown that they can walk to or walk around, go to small shops and restaurants. And, this document is one way, working long-term to achieve that. So
yeah,
timing is good.
I like it. I think you're going to have such a good plan that you're going to have to come up with more parking somewhere, John.
Right.
I do have one last question. How will you do the waviness on the sidewalk and in the street there on Creek, right by PNC and Game On? Is that something easily maintainable? I'm curious on that.
Well, the thought there would be that could be, maybe it's all concrete road there. And so, they're just two different colors of integral colored concrete would be one idea.
Okay. I like the concept. Don't get me wrong. I think it would look really nice. It just, once again, long-term, how you maintain that look.
So, yeah, so it would be integral colored concrete, so it might fade over time.
Sort of like.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any more questions?
I'm good.
Good
Good.
deal. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody on this part for joining in. It was helpful getting ideas from this committee also before it goes to council. And that way everybody was able to, there were duplicate questions brought up on this one like it was in planning commission. So yeah, all in all, that's why I asked members of council to be part of this meeting. That way everybody can put their comments in on what they think. It is a concept, and that way, you know, down the road, whenever everything gets approved and when this does happen, at least our concerns will be listed to whoever may be doing this whenever this program starts. So that's all I have to say. John, you have anything else? John, did
Oh,
we
you're
lose you?
muted.
Mute.
Oh,
I apologize. No, I was just going to say there was something blocking my screen. Yeah, this is, again, just a concept, got all of our ideas, you know, we'll work through it, you know, bits and pieces or the whole thing, you know, depending on, you know, finances and council approval when the time comes. But, you know, we've got the ideas and concerns will, you know, every little phase will be engineered, designed. You know, you don't take this obvious document here and then just go out and hire a contractor to do the work. So there'll be a lot more smart people looking at this, you know, skilled in design and engineering, you know, before anything happens. But, you know, we have to start with this concept. And, you know, I think at least Planning Commission and, you know, was happy with it. And the consultant, you know, we're happy with them. They've listened to us every step of the way. So we just look for this committee to give us the thumbs up so we can move it on.
all righty. My committee, do we give John the thumbs up? I do.
So do I. I'm a yes.
I'm a yes also.
All righty. I told Jim Lucas the only thing he's not able to get out of this plan is the statue of him. So he wanted a statue of himself. So I told him that's not going to happen. So, but other than that, John, you've got the board's approval. So there we go.
All righty. Sounds good.
Is
You got
there
any questions or anything, you can email me tomorrow or whatever. We'll get back to you. But we appreciate everyone's time this evening.
All righty. If there's nothing else, I want to thank our guests also. Good presentation. And thank you very much for joining in on this also. At this point, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
So moved by Mike, second by Dave. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
All righty, gentlemen. Thank you and everybody else that joined in. Have a nice evening.
Have a
Thank
good